coaches. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, ay. Blow the whistle, they can't hold a flame against you, ay. Blow the whistle, blow the whistle, blow the whistle, got the game, it ain't no issue, yeah. Blowing the whistle, I had enough with you, the championship, it is gone. Ain't listen to you, I can't give it to you, cause you don't know what I've been on. This is the Coaches Podcast, ripping up everything, off that, back to back is not.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome back into the Fantasy Coaches Podcast. I am your host, as always, guys, Coach Steve. We have another amazing episode for you guys today. We are talking ADP, rookie draft ADP, for those dynasty owners who have their rookie drafts maybe just starting, maybe it's done, maybe they haven't even begun yet. I know there's a lot of differences in terms of when you should do your rookie draft, but like me, I got a lot of mine already basically done, and I have a ton of ADP to help you guys out with today. And of course, we have Coach Tyler with us today. What's going on, Coach Tyler?
What's up, guys? Yeah, have one fast draft that I finished. I'm in the middle of a couple slow drafts right now, so excited to dive into the ADP. It'll help me, it'll help y'all, and I'm ready to get into it.
Absolutely. So we're gonna go right into it, guys. News-wise, just throw out some things real quick there. Nothing anything too crazy. Elijah Moore signed with the Bills.
Tucker was released about an hour or two ago.
Yeah, Justin Tucker got released for his situation going on there in Baltimore. So the Ravens are looking for a new kicker for the first time in over a decade. So things are changing in the NFL, and they come quickly here. But it all starts with rookies, the new batch of young generation coming into the NFL. And if you're playing Dynasty and you really need to know, who do I pick and where do I get the value at in draft? So we're going to tell you that right now, starting here at the top. And we're going to break this down every 6 players. If you're watching live on our YouTube channel, I highly recommend it. You'll see the names of the players, their position in terms of what number they've gone at that point, and average ADP. So we'll start with the top. I'll name the first 6, and then me and Coach Tyler will discuss. So starting at the top here, Ashton Jeanty goes essentially at the 101, followed by Amari and Hampton, then Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, Tet McMillan, and Travion Henderson. That is essentially or so the top 6 in rookie drafts. But the biggest ones are going to talk about the top 5 first, Coach Tyler here. Obviously, Jeanty goes 101. I don't think we can disagree or have any disagreement on that one so far, correct?
Not at all.
Yeah, if you're looking on our YouTube live, you'll see his average ADP is 1. He goes first in every single rookie draft, no matter the situation. He has been the 101. I'd say about through 16 to 17 rookie drafts that I've done so far, he's the 101. The next grouping here between Hampton, Cam Ward, Travis Hunter, and Tet McMillan here. Obviously, it looks like Amari Hampton comes in at a little bit better than the rest of them. He's at a 2.9 ADP, while the next one is Cam Ward with 3.4. So essentially, you could pretty much argue that Hampton and Cam Ward go at the 102 and 103 here. But Coach Tyler, which direction do you see the better fitting for Dynasty owner? I'm looking at the 102 currently right now.
Yeah, Amari Hampton has gone 102 in all the rookie drafts that I've done. That being said, I don't have the 102. If I did, it would neither be Hampton or Ward. But we'll get into that as we get down this list a little bit. But I really think Cam Ward being at 3 is just a result of Superflex being, quarterback being king in Superflex. You look at the offense that's there in Tennessee, and obviously we're projecting out for Dynasty, so there's a lot of things that could change even by next offseason. But for his rookie year, Cam Ward doesn't have an outstanding offense around him. And so it's going to be very reliant on him. The Titans did have the number 1 overall pick for a reason. The offense is going to be very reliant on him. And the weapons that he has aren't anything that, overly excite you, right? We think about Caleb Williams walking into the situation in Chicago last year, didn't necessarily have a great offensive line, but had decent running back room. They had just gone and gotten DJ Moore. They drafted Roma Dunze. The situation was great for him. He had Cole Kmet there. Obviously, they made some additions this offseason. But walking into that perfect situation. Caleb Williams didn't necessarily destroy fantasy in terms of his production, right? He was kind of middle of the pack, 3,500 yards, 20 touchdowns through the air to 6 interceptions, right? And then almost 500 on the ground. And that was middle of the pack for the quarterback. And that's number one overall, walking into arguably the best number one overall quarterback situation that we can think of in the last decade or two. So Cam Ward walking into the Tennessee room that's there, I'm definitely not excited for what his rookie year is going to look like. Obviously, quarterbacks take time to develop. Tennessee is hopefully going to commit to putting people around him. But if I'm sitting at 2 and it's between Hampton or Ward, if I need running back, need quarterback, I go Hampton. I know a lot of people are in love with the landing spot. I am also, obviously, with Harbaugh there. I do think he competes with Najee a little bit for touches. I don't think he just walks in and immediately takes, 85, 90% of that backfield. But Najee's on a cheap 1-year deal like we've talked about. It's not anything that the Chargers are overly committed to. And so I think Hampton projects out to have the better production. I think Cam Ward is just the number one overall pick, and in Superflex, quarterback has become king. So people are, I would honestly say, kind of reaching on him. I put him down in my Superflex rankings about number 5 overall. Obviously, ADP moves around with that. But I go Hampton over Ward, but I also go Travis Hunter over both of them. And we'll get into that in a second.
Oh, God. Yeah, absolutely. We'll get that in a second. But, yeah, I think the best way to look about this is, for me personally, at the 102, if you already have a QB1 and you're looking for a QB2, I think there's a better argument to go with Cam Ward. And that's my opinion personally, because I feel like Cam Ward gives you solid QB2 numbers for what you're looking for out of him. I think if you're relying on Cam Ward to be your future QB1 in fantasy, I feel like you're going to go down a really tough path there, because you're going to assume that Cam Ward is going to be this outstanding quarterback, which he absolutely can be. But I just feel like Hampton is a safer overall pick than risking your top QB1 option on your dynasty roster with Cam Ward. The next year's class has a potential to have a lot of good quarterbacks coming out. And if you're bad again next year, you have an option to get a even more talented quarterback in next year's class. While, again, the running back class, I don't know much about it personally just yet, but I haven't heard it being as lucrative for running backs as this past class was. And picking Hampton at 102 makes a lot of sense. Now, there's been a lot of things in ADP so far. Hampton and Ward obviously are a little ahead, and they've gone a little ahead in a lot of my drafts so far. Travis Hunter and McMillan also have gone at the 102 at different times in my rookie drafts. So you're looking at those guys in the top 5 picks pretty much for the most part. Looking at, just wanted to see here. I mean, the furthest that Cam Ward has fallen is 6. Hampton hasn't fallen past 4. And then you look at, we're going to look at Hunter and McMillan now, and they've fallen a little bit. Lowest they've gotten is 7th and 8th. But again, like I said, they've also gone as high as 2 here. And obviously, Coach Tyler, you're a guy who wants to take Travis Hunter at the 102 spot, which, again, I'm kind of against it, to be honest. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I just think talent-wise, Hunter deserves to be the number 2 pick, right? He was the number 2 pick in the actual NFL draft. So if we're going just based off that, if we're propping Cam Ward up because he was the number 1 overall pick, Travis Hunter needs to be in that same conversation. But the biggest question surrounding Travis Hunter all offseason was, where does he play the bulk of his time in the NFL, right? No one expected him to be 100% both ways, no matter how great of an athlete he is, no matter how good he is at both positions. But the Jags traded everything they did to, go up and get him. And then just hours after the draft, their offensive-minded coach, Liam Cohen, who has had multiple wide receiver ones in multiple offenses, came out and said Travis Hunter is going to major in offense and minor in defense. He's going to walk in and be a wide receiver first, and then they're going to, train him up and have him in a couple packages as a DB, because he really is very good at corner, right? But if an offensive-minded coach that can prop up 2 wide receiver ones in multiple offenses in his past is going to make the push for the Jaguars to trade a future first and multiple, day 2 picks to go up and get Travis Hunter and then immediately say he's going to major in offense and minor in defense. I love it, right? You think about the situation walking in. You have, in my opinion, a middle of the pack quarterback, but it's definitely not as bad as the situation that we all expected him to go to in Cleveland, or even possibly if he fell to the Giants at 3. So he's walking in with a quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who this Jags team is investing a lot in. And he walks into an offense where Brian Thomas Jr. just had this great rookie season, and everyone assumes that all the top corners are going to be focused on him, right? You go look at Matt Harmon's reception perception stuff on Travis Hunter. If you stick him with not your best out there, he's going to burn you. Any route, any variation, short, intermediate, deep, he's going to beat you. And so I am willing to take the risk on Hunter. Obviously, there is risk associated with it, right? This is going into year 1. This is what they're saying. There's more chance of injury because he's on the field for more snaps. There's a chance that he goes onto the field after his rookie year, and the Jags say, he's a better corner. We have, we can get another receiver in free agency that's a little bit cheaper. We thought, and then he becomes a DB, right? There's risk associated with it. But I can't remember who it was that tweeted it out. I meant to look it up before the show. But someone, tweeted out something right as rookie draft started. And they said, the scariest thing in your rookie draft is drafting Travis Hunter. And the scariest thing in your rookie draft is not drafting Travis Hunter. And I've said it in multiple shows that we've done before we had landing spot, right? If he was playing predominantly on offense, he was the wide receiver 1 to me. And he ends up in a better situation than we thought he was going to be in. And they have voiced nothing but a focus on he's going to play predominantly offense. So he's my 102. Talent-wise, situation-wise, you can say longer shelf life because a receiver has a longer shelf life than a running back normally. That can be kind of questioned because of the DB snaps.
That's fair. See, the way I think of Travis Hunter is like
but at the same time,
what was that?
I have him as 2, and I thought for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. So the negatives with Travis Hunter for me is the fact that there's still a lot of unknown with him. Obviously, there's a lot of pure talent involved with Travis Hunter, and there's a lot of things to like about him. But there's also, like I said, like you mentioned it, the potential for injury playing multiple sides of the field consistently. You don't know what his role will be on. Maybe it's nothing, but maybe it's very involved. Or maybe, like you said, they find out after a year, you know what? I think we want to use him at corner next year. And then you don't have a player in Travis Hunter to use on offense as much unless you're in an IDP league. So with Travis Hunter, I like him at the 4. I like him at between 5. I like him in that range there. I think at that point, the risk and the talent award is there. But I think Hampton is just a safer prospect. And again, in a Superflex league, taking the quarterback with Cam Ward for me makes a lot of sense. And again, you can make an argument that McMillan is joining a situation where he's likely going to be the wide receiver 1 in that offense there that's going to see a pepper of targets. And again, they're not far off. I mean, Travis Hunter ADP is 4.0 and McMillan's is 4.7. So they're all really close there. They're essentially going 4 and 5 in a lot of your rookie drafts this year. But again, this is the top 5 or so of rookie drafts currently in terms of the ADP that I've come up with so far. That's exactly what you're going to see probably 8 times out of 10, unless someone does something crazy. Moving on to the next grouping here, though, at this point, because you see a big gap from McMillan to Travion Henderson from a 4.7 to a 7. And him and our next guy here, let me go to the next page here, Quinshon Judkins, they're basically pretty much the same. They're going back and forth between the 6th and 7th pick there. And if you're in that range, you're going to get a running back more than likely here. I think we've already mentioned, did you say you liked Henderson better than Judkins?
Yeah, I had Henderson higher than Judkins. I mean, I have them exactly how they're being drafted right here. 3 and 4 in the class, middle of the first round. I have Henderson better. I think long term he plays out or he projects out better because he's not someone that's going to be the workhorse back. So hopefully health is a lot bigger factor in his case, but he's also going to a better organization, better landing spot with obviously a franchise quarterback and an ascending offense.
Right. All right, so looking at the back half here, like I said, Henderson goes in the top 6, but Junkins goes, again, at times goes 6, at times goes 5, at times goes 7, and that's kind of where he sits in ADP right now. You also have Tyler Warren, Caleb Johnson, Colston Loveland, Emeka Egbuka, and Jackson Dart running out your top 12 overall for rookie drafts here. And this section is a lot for contending teams at this point here. Obviously, you're playing in the back half. You have a later round draft pick. You likely were in the playoffs. You likely won the championship this year. So there are a lot of good players, I think, to go after. I think the one that stands out to me personally, Coach Tyler, is Caleb Johnson in that 10.1 range there. He's the 5th running back off the board right now. And I think he is the prize of the back half right now. Personally, that's how I feel. For a contending team needing potential running back, Caleb Johnson is a guy I think people are starting to, I wouldn't say precisely reach for, but starting to reach over the table a little bit for his value, where he's going. When I first started doing rookie drafts, he was going 12, 13. Now he's creeping up to 11, 10, 9. I've seen him go as high as 8. So Johnson is a rising player right now. I mean, you obviously like him a lot. We mentioned it last show, right?
Yeah, I do like Caleb Johnson. I did talk about he will mostly have a 2-down workload. Jalen Warren is still there. They put that 2nd round restricted free agent tender on him, and so they're at least committed to him for this year. I don't think he plays as little of a role as he did with Najee there, just because Najee had a lot of passing down work.
Of course.
And I don't think Caleb Johnson is necessarily set up for that. Not that he doesn't have the skills. It's just not what we saw a ton on film, partially because of being at Iowa. They just couldn't pass the ball to anyone. But I like him. I do think he is sort of pushed up the board because contending teams look at what is there and see, a running back in an Arthur Smith offense, which is everything you want. I still have guys like Emeka Egbuka above him. I don't think that Egbuka does a ton in his rookie year, just with how much talent is around him. But if you look over the next couple of years, Mike Evans will be, 33, 34 years old, coming to the end of his contract. Chris Godwin is 29 years old, coming off that torn ACL. So there's pathways for Egbuka to be on the field in 3 receiver sets as a whole. But also, if we're looking at right now, obviously the landing spot isn't ideal in terms of week 1 going out and getting you 12, 15 fantasy points. But over the next year or two, there's very much an opportunity for to be, one of the leaders in those 2 wide receiver sets. And that's why the Bucs spent, a top 25 pick on it.
Right, exactly. And that kind of brings me back to Johnson a little bit there, is that I feel like looking at these players that you're sitting here with Warren, Loveland, Egbuka, Darts, Johnson's getting pushed up the board because of the need for running back, which could spell trouble, to be honest. I love the prospect, and I'm high on him, and I plan on taking him, and I have took him in a lot of big spots. But again, it comes with a lot more risk because, we could see Warren and Loveland stand out eventually. It might not be this year, but for a contending team, Warren and Loveland probably don't interest you as much unless you're dire for a tight end. Neither does Egbuka, who likely, if he sees 40 catches and 500 yards for his first year, I'm not surprised. And Darts, we don't know when he's playing. He could maybe not join the Giants team until week 14, 15 as the starter. And then that's essentially the end of the season for you. So Johnson's a guy who's been rising. Warren and Loveland, again, they're solid tight ends. If you're looking for a tight end in this class, they're solid. I also think that you can wait on tight end, and we'll talk about more tight ends in a little bit, Coach Tyler, but I feel like, I don't know how you feel about it. I know I love the talent between these two, but I feel like going a different direction and waiting until round 2 for a contending team has a lot of better options, me personally. And that's kind of how I feel about it. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I feel the same way, but I also don't. It completely depends on your roster. One of my drafts that I've already finished, it's a tight end premium league. I won the league this past year. But I had some firsts to play around with, and then I obviously had my championship pick. It was a 10-team league. And so I used whatever firsts I had. I used 3 and 5, traded up to 1 and got Ashton Genty. And then I was sitting there on the clock at 10. And I have, currently rostered, I have George Kittle, I have Mark Andrews, and Isaiah Likely. So I have, a tight end room somewhat set up for the next couple years. And I ended up with that 10th overall pick taking Colson Loveland. I and again, this is not something that I need this year, right? George Kittle just signed that fat contract. If he's healthy, I'm comfortable with him. If Mark Andrews can keep raining in touchdowns like he did, I'm comfortable with him. If Mark Andrews isn't doing that, Isaiah Likely is probably the one to benefit from that. So I don't need Loveland for, at least another year or two. And if we look at Warren and Loveland in a year or two from now, I doubt Anthony Richardson's the quarterback of the Colts. If they have a season like they did this past year, they're probably going out and getting someone next year, either through free agency or the draft. If we look 2 years in the future for the Bears, who knows if DJ Moore is still there, right? He might be traded. He might get cut, whatever happens there, right? Why am I blanking on his name? I just said it earlier. Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet's contract is going to be up. So Colson Loveland will be the tight end on the roster, right? Odunze and Burden will have had a couple years under their belt, so we'll know if they're, really guys or not. But the landscape completely changes. And so I personally like both of them within this range, depending on what your needs are, right? I had a pretty solidified roster, worked a couple things to go get Ashton Genty, which more solidified my roster. So I just had, the pick of the litter at 10. And I looked forward and I said, I've got Kittle, I've got Andrews for the next couple of years. But Loveland was taken with the 10th overall pick. I'm going to eat up a tight end at the 10th overall pick all day because a team is willing to invest top 10 draft capital in them. Why shouldn't I?
That's fair. I respect that there. And again, I'll make more of my case when we get to some of these other tight ends that we'll get to at some point. But it's not a bad move there at all. But moving on to the early round 2 selections here at this point here, and this is the first 6 picks into round 2. RJ Harvey, Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, Trey Harris, Cam Scattaboo, and Jaden Higgins. Now, Harvey at sometimes kind of flip-flops with darts. He kind of goes in round 1 depending on the need and everything like that. What did Jamie say in here? 12-team, gave up my 2020 112. Oh, wow. That's pretty good. Love that. 112 for George Kittle. Love that. But yeah, Harvey goes in round 1 a lot. I don't see Burden as much. Burden started off when I first started doing rookie drafts this year. He started going in round 1, but now he's pretty much a confirmed round 2. He kind of fluctuates from early first to mid. I mean, not early first, but an early second to mid second or so. You have Golden, Trey Harris, like I said, Scattaboo, and Jaden Higgins here. So, I mean, out of this section here, Coach Tyler, now, if you're an early round player, which direction are you leaning towards at this point in this range here? If you have the 102, the 103, the 202, the 203 in that range there.
Yeah. I've been anywhere that I've been in this range, or a lot of places that I've seen, you're leaning receiver, right? You've got that big 3 with Luther Burden, Matthew Golden, and Trey Harris right there coming in. That's 202, basically tied between Burden and Golden. Take your taste, and then 204, right? And I've seen some reaches on RJ Harvey. I've seen him go as high as like 8. People that missed out on, the top 4 backs, they want to take that shot and they don't want to take it on Caleb Johnson.
He's gone as high as 6.
Yeah. And so, the running backs aren't necessarily going to be there in terms of the top guys. Obviously, Scattaboo's right here, but, we look at Matthew Golden, that's a first-round receiver you're getting in the second round of your rookie drafts. That almost never happens, right?
No.
You've got Luther Burden, who obviously that Bears room is crowded. We've talked about that. But also, we look at this new offense that Ben Johnson is bringing in. He went out with the 10th overall pick and got a tight end. He went out in the early second round and got a receiver. Not to say that he doesn't like DJ Moore or Rome Odunze, but if he's building the offense, we're seeing exactly how he's doing it. So I don't discount the fact that Burden could be a guy in the next couple of years. if not, taking the spot of like a Keenan Allen or something like that.
Right.
And then Trey Harris, the Chargers aren't going to pass the ball a ton, but he opens up a lot for Ladd McConkey, and teams are going to be focused on Ladd McConkey. But if you watch him, in college, if you look at the analytics, I want to say I heard that he had the highest yards per route run charted in a season in, at least the last 25 years, if not longer. Like, this is a big play waiting to happen type guy. And, he's 6'2", 6'3", has speed. Who's to say he doesn't become, a Jameson Williams, a Rashid Shaheed from what he did last year type player? And, you won't need a ton of volume, but if he can go out and get a couple 40-yard receptions and then fall into the end zone, you don't need 17 targets.
That's true.
So I like the receivers a lot in this range here, especially if you're getting a guy like Golden, who was a, top 25, top 30 pick, and you're getting him in the second round.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I feel like this is going to be another teardrop right after these first 6 picks. The teardrops for me drops significantly after this. That's how I feel personally about this. But these 6 players, however you like them or whatnot you like them, this is a pretty good range. If you have an early second round pick, you're getting a pretty solid player, whether it's one of the running backs, again, who I'm not as high on. I think there are some more risk involved with those 2 running backs. But again, if you get them in round 2, it's not as bad. Where the wide receivers at this point, they're solid values. Again, I'm not the highest guy on Burden. I think he's more of a gadget player. But in round 2, there's potential in that Bears offense. Like Coach Tyler said, Matthew Golden's a round 1 wide receiver. You're getting him in round 2. That's great value. Trey Harris and obviously Higgins are being bumped up because of the landing spots they hit into. But again, they're both still really talented wide receivers. But even if you're not in this top 6, maybe you're in the back half, this would be a good idea to move into this top 6 here. Find a way to move in there because you'll get yourself a really good player that's worth grabbing and giving up maybe a second and a third round pick in this rookie draft for this top 6 range, because it is going to be an impactful player, whether it's early season or mid to late season. They're going to make some noise in their first year as a rookie. All right, moving on to the back half here. Obviously, you see the teardrop where Jaden Higgins was 17.4. Now Jack Beck is at 20.4. Now you see there's a teardrop. This is the teardrop right here. And as you can see, there's not even a really confirmed top 24 per se, because you look at Tyler Shuck, who is the last guy in round 2 to go. His average ADP is 26.1. So we're really seeing a lot of differences in values for a lot of players at this back range here. But in this back 6 of the second round of ADP right now, you have Jack Bash, you have Jalen Milroe, you have Beauchamp Tootin, Mason Taylor, Shedeur Sanders, and Tyler Shuck. Obviously, a lot of quarterbacks go off the board here now at this point. Coach Chad, let me ask you at this point, in late round 2, do any of these quarterbacks for you consider worth taking right now?
Shuck is interesting. Obviously, if you've been watching the show, you know of my distaste for him because what he did to my college experience watching Texas Tech football. But also, we still don't have clarity on Derek Carr. And so there's a chance that Shuck walks in as the week 1 starter for the Saints. Not necessarily because of talent, but because the starting quarterback is gone and they got to find someone. And he's a guy that got rave reviews through the pre-draft process. The Saints took him, and he's really the only one of these guys that I truly could see being the week 1 starter. Obviously, I think Shedeur could be the starter at some point this season. But I think if you're looking long-term, Shuck is the only one to walk in as a week 1 starter. I don't necessarily think that he is a long-term starter, but, he could go out and surprise, and Derek Carr hasn't necessarily lived up to the hype in New Orleans. He's on a fat contract, and I'm sure the Saints would like to invest their money other places as well. So maybe he just ends up as the guy on a rookie contract that is either bridging the gap or turns into something. But he's the only one of these 3 that necessarily intrigues me just because he has that quick start potential. Milroe, obviously, Darnold could return back to a pumpkin, and Milroe could get a shot at the starting job. I think he's a developmental quarterback, if anything, but he's a large man that will run. He's basically Anthony Richardson 2.0, just not with top 5 draft capital. So
Sure.
they could try and refine some things with him, and he could possibly turn into a starter there, especially if Darnold goes down or if Darnold isn't living up to his paycheck. But Shuck is really the only one that intrigues me just because he has that immediate start ability. But then I would take his, week 1 availability and then ship him off for something that I would be able to use long term.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, yeah. I mean, for me, it is Milroe. If I'm willing to take a shot at one of these quarterbacks in round 2, it is Jalen Milroe. For me, I feel like there's just so much untapped upside. I know it's risky. Obviously, he's obviously coming as a backup. We don't know when he's going to ever start, but he's still a quarterback who I think is very interesting. Whether or not he gets a job with Seattle or a year or two, some teams like, hey, or even we saw this Joe Milton get traded away. Someone's like, you see Jalen Milroe at a preseason game, or maybe it's week 18, 19, whatever. There's some interesting things happening there. And it's someone that I want to see on my team if I can. I haven't been able to get him too many places, unfortunately. That's just what I've been just missing out on him, or there's a need for me that I really need in tight end, which is Mason Taylor has been a guy I've been grabbing all over the place in late round 2, early round 3 range. But to see these quarterbacks in more recent rookie drafts that I've been in, you've seen them kind of fall a little bit more. So if you have the 301, 302, there's a chance that Jalen Milroe might be there, Shedeur Sanders, Tyler Shuck, all might be there, for you to go out and grab instead. So again, looking at ADP, this might not be the best value to take them right now, but in your rookie drafts, you could see these guys kind of fall as contending teams don't want backup quarterbacks on their team, obviously, and they want a player that has upside like a running back or a wide receiver at this point here. But yeah, Milroe, Sanders, and Shuck, they've been falling, and I wouldn't be surprised if my ADP in another week or two, they're both, at least 2 of them are outside the top 24 players in ADP right now. So, and obviously Beck and Tootin also go in late round 2. Again, Beck's a solid wide receiver, and Tootin, it's more like upside play, hoping that he's the Bucky Irving of 2024 for the Jaguars. It's basically, I think I've heard a lot of people talk about Tootin that way in terms of that upside play. Hopefully that he can beat out Travis Etienne and Tank Bigsby. So heading over to round 3 of ADP, the first half here. What did Jamie say here? Milroe's one of the best running quarterbacks we've seen come out since Lamar Jackson. He's a better runner than Jalen Hurts. I agree with that. And we have Milroe's accuracy issue is a concern. It absolutely is. So was Josh Allen's. Yes, it was. So I respect that. He says Milroe's a better passer than Josh Allen at this point of their careers. All right. I don't hate it. All right. So getting back to.
I don't know if I'd agree with that one.
Oh, Jamie's got to come on the show, I guess, then one day and have an argument with Tyler. Getting into the back half here, round 3, you're looking at Jalen Knoll, Elijah Royal, Kyle Williams, Terrence Ferguson, Devin Neal, and Jaden Royals. You obviously have 3 wide receivers, a couple tight ends, and a running back go in early round 3 here. Fun fact, if you're on Sleeper, Kyle Williams, we're going to start with Kyle Williams here. He's been going in round 2 a lot more lately. People are starting to really buy into him in New England here. And his ADP is absolutely garbage on Sleeper. He's like ranked 5,000 on Sleeper ADP currently right now. So you might be able to sneak into round 3 and get him without anyone really noticing. But how do you feel about him, Coach Tyler? Is he worth taking a gamble on early, more round 2 range? Not early, but late round 2 range?
Yeah, he's definitely someone that I've seen ranked up and kind of tiered up into that late round 2 range. I definitely liked him coming into the draft. He's someone that, if you look at a lot of the non-draft experts, he's very high on their list, right? One guy that I watch a lot is Steve Smith, right? And Kyle Williams was high on his list. These former players that take their hand at scouting and pre-draft process. And, they're not always wrong. But looking at Kyle Williams, I think he definitely has a role to play on this offense. That's obviously why they took him there. Stephon Diggs, again, another old receiver coming off of a major injury, right?
You're
Kyle Williams plays a lot of the same role that Stephon Diggs does. Kendrick Bourne and Mac Hollins are, I guess you throw Javon Baker in there, but, this is a wide receiver room littered with a bunch of names that people are hoping are, they come up as the sleepers every year going into the drafts, going into your redraft leagues. And every year they don't do a lot. So Kyle Williams might just be that for this draft, right? He might be the guy that everyone's like, oh, someone has to make it out of the Patriots room. Drake May is going to take a step up. And it's going to be Kyle Williams because they went out and drafted him.
wow.
But I haven't been taking him earlier than the third round. I definitely see the allure for him, but also I want to see Drake May take that next step, and they did invest, a decent amount of money into Stephon Diggs. They do have guys like Pop Douglas and Kendrick Bourne and Javon Baker. They have young guys that are ready to, come onto the scene. And so I like investing third-round capital in Williams. I get, if you're a contending team and you don't have anything at the beginning of the third round, taking that reach on him.
I didn't know that. Javon Baker was released a few days ago.
Was he?
I didn't know that.
Isn't according to Sleeper. But
Sleeper's fucked up.
yeah. But I get being, at the end of the second round and not having anything coming back until the end of the third and taking that shot on him. But, again, that's personal preference. I understand him at the end of the second. I also very much really value him in the third round. And so, it's a personal preference there. But I understand why people would take that shot and, reach a little bit on him.
Right. And I think what it is, I think a lot more people, as my drafts have been going on, is that more contending teams don't want the quarterbacks in round 2. They don't want to take the tight end and Mason Taylor if they don't have to. They'd rather take shots on Jalen Noel, Jalen Royals, Kyle Williams. They'd rather take shots on a wide receiver who are either in good offenses or have a good opportunity to see targets. And all three of those wide receivers do a lot. And so does Devin Neal, the running back from the Saints there, because we don't know what's going on there. Kendre Miller really has, whether it's the lack of opportunity or just is he really all that good to be what they need him to be there. And they don't think he is the type of fit that fits with Alvin Kamara currently right now. He takes over the Alvin Kamara job. That's what he's better, I think, at. Devin Neal can come in, and I like Devin Neal a lot, who I've been taking in late round 2 at times, who is sitting in round 3 right now, because the value that he offers as a 2-down back in that early down portion. We've seen the Saints do well with 2 running backs in their time frame over years of coaches and different coaches with Alvin Kamara. Devin Neal's someone, I don't know how you feel about him, Coach Tyler, but Devin Neal's someone I do like a lot. So,
yeah, I do like Devin Neal. Really just kind of echoing what you said. He is a guy that could come in and, we talked about it as we looked at landing spots last week. Alvin Kamara hasn't necessarily been the most outstanding rusher. Most of his fantasy value has come from the pass game. And so I see Devin Neal being able to come in and at least begin to chip into that rushing work, if not work into the passing game as well. We know Kamara hasn't necessarily been the healthiest over the past few years either. And so Neal could be, a future spot for them. I know he's a guy that a lot of people liked going into the process, and he was someone that really revitalized and revived the entire Kansas football program. So I don't see a pathway where he couldn't do that for New Orleans as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, real quick, like I said, I mentioned the tight ends before that, passing on Warren Loveland, I like guys like Elijah Arroyo in early round 3 or even in late round 2. I like the potential that him and Terrence Ferguson offer. I know Ferguson might be more of a year 2 kind of player. But again, he was taken high in an offense that, was very creative in LA Rams. And then you have Arroyo, who they're talking about as a flexed wide receiver tight end type of individual to use in their offense as a real big man for that offense. And it's interesting. And that's why I kind of like them. Not to say better. Obviously, if Warren and Loveland come to me at the right price in round 1, I'm not going to not take them if I have a major need for tight end. But if I say I don't per se need a tight end, I'm okay going in round 2. If I have a Kittle, I might have to take Arroyo, take Ferguson, let them sit for a year or two, and eventually Kittle's going to age out. And then Arroyo, Ferguson, even again Mason Taylor. I have so many shares of Mason Taylor, it's ridiculous. These guys, these mid to late, round 2, round 3 tight ends, they have value. They're worth grabbing right now. That's kind of how I feel with tight ends, Coach Tyler.
Yeah.
All right, let's get the back half of round 3 here. A lot more players in this time here. We're looking at Jaden Blue, Dylan Sampson, Alec Mayer, Harold Fanning Jr., Will Howard, and Ollie Gordon here now. So this is the back half. You're looking at 3 running backs, a wide receiver, tight end, and a quarterback here. Jamie says he's on the clock in the 32-man lead. Someone offered me Reed in the 2022. What can I draft back, Mason or Ferguson? What do I do?
I feel like you take.
I guess it depends what that first is.
I think the deal because you're basically getting at Besh's ceiling what he could be plus an extra second rounder. Obviously, the earliest that second rounder is going to be is the 33rd overall pick in your draft next year, but that also becomes a tradable asset to help build a little bit of depth where it's almost impossible to build depth in a 32-man league.
I think I'd lean Reed personally. Getting Reed in the 2022 second over having Beck. I like Beck, but I think Reed still has a lot of potential upside. And then you get, like the Coach Tyler said, that second makes a lot of sense. He uses trade bait eventually for something. That's how I feel about it. I like a 32-man league. I'm on a 32-man league too. I love it. All right. So, and it's IDP. Yeah. Are we in the same league, Jamie? Are you in my league, maybe? Are you? I don't know. I want to see who. I want to see what. I want to see. Probably not.
You gonna get the trade has been completed notification?
Maybe, unless you're pick 23 right now. I don't know. So we'll see. All right. So going back to this late round 3 value here. I mean, who really stands out for you, Coach Tyler, in this range here?
Yeah. I really like Jaden Blue, and I really like Will Howard. Jaden Blue, that Cowboys backfield is just kind of decimated right now. Obviously, they didn't spend a ton of capital on Blue. I want to say it was a 4th or 5th rounder, if I'm correct. 5th round. Yeah, 5th round pick. But he was a Texas guy, had speed, ran a 4.38 at the combine. But, he walks into a backfield that has, tradings and signings of Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and then you have Deuce Vaughn and Hunter Lupecki behind them. Like, this is a room where Jaden Blue could definitely make, a name for himself. He could definitely cut out a bunch of work. He's 21 years old right now, 5'9", 196. So not necessarily on the bigger side, but he's not small by any means. But Dallas, even with the kind of lack of star power that they've had since Zeke's first departure, they've still had somewhat efficient running offenses. And so I think that Jaden Blue can walk in. I think that he can begin to chip away at snaps. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is taking, a decent share of the snaps by the end of this season alone, if not headed into next season and on. Right. And then Will Howard, we talked about him last week, right? He's one of those quarterbacks that's not a Cam Ward or a Jackson Dart that I could see immediately starting this next season or very soon after starting this next season, right? The Steelers don't have a lot in that room. He's competing with Mason Rudolph and Skylar Thompson. I like the odds of a national championship quarterback beating them out, even if he was, I want to say 5th, 6th round pick, right?
Agreed.
So I really like Jaden Blue. I like Will Howard in these ranges. The fact that you can get Will Howard at the back end of your 3rd round in a super flex draft, he's someone that if I have one of those later picks, if I'm a contending team, or if I even just have a 3rd to trade up in there, I'm happy taking Will Howard there. And then Jaden Blue, he's really one of the only guys I see in this range being an immediate producer.
Jimmy said, "I see blue ceiling for Naeem Hines. If you draft Blue, you're feeling very blue."
Yeah, but Naeem Hines at the end of your third round, you're not too upset with that going into it.
Naeem Hines had one really good season with the Colts. That's all you can ask for. But yeah, Jaden Blue is definitely someone who's been rising upwards in recent days. Not even weeks, days. This is how long. It's only been a week or so since the NFL draft, but recent days, Jaden Blue's been really rising upwards, while Dylan Sampson has kind of fallen. I think his value is starting to become good value in late round 3 because again, you never know what's going to happen. We saw with the Packers. Remember the Packers long ago? They drafted Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones. And who stayed on the team much longer? Aaron Jones did. Aaron Jones came out and was a big shot at some point for the Packers. But again, I'm not saying that's going to happen with Junkins and Sampson. One's going to fall out and one out. But Sampson at this point, late round 3, there's a lot of better value where, again, in early days, he was going late round 2, which I think that was not the best value to be taking Sampson. He's a round 3 guy with some upside. Ollie Gordon is someone who's been kind of, his value is all over the place. I'm not even saying he's a late round 3 guy. You could get him in late round 3. You can get him at the end of round 4. At this point, after I'd say Will Howard or so, not even Will Howard, because Will Howard goes in round 4 a lot too. Like, it's a very fluctuable thing depending on your likability towards a player or need at a position at this point here. And what JB said here. Wait, Coach Steve. Yes, I'm in your leagues. I run the Fantasy Intervention League for Chase. Yes, that's me. So yeah, so you see that there's not a ton of differences here, and up until you get to Will Howard, where the jump in ADP goes from 34 to 38 now, and that's where things go crazy at this point here as we head into round 4. Round 4, we have a lot of different things going on here. The first half of round 4, you're looking at DJ Giddens, Woody Marks, Jaquez Hunter, Pat Bryant, Jordan James, Isaac Tesla. They're all round 4 values at this point here. But Coach Tyler, who are 1 or 2 guys that you really like in this early round 4 range?
Yeah, there's really only one that sticks out to me, and he's a guy that we talked about last week too. So go watch last week's episode. Go listen to last week's episode after we finish this one up. But Woody Marks, right? We talked about how much receiving volume there was in the backfield last year for the Texans, right? And obviously the Texans spent up and got the 2 Iowa State receivers in this draft. But if we go look at, even Joe Mixon, who is, not necessarily a chipper back anymore, he had 52 targets on his own out of this backfield. And then you've got guys like Damian Pierce and Daria Gumbawale, who could definitely see some improvements in terms of the competition back there. But, you look at Agumbawale and you look at Pierce, and there's about 30, 35 targets that could be had there on top of Mixon's almost 60. And so the backfield has seen some receiving work, and Mixon was banged up a lot last year because the Texans really leaned on him and only him in that backfield. And they saw how terrible that works as they got into that difficult stretch going into December in your fantasy playoffs. I know I was personally burned by having Joe Mixon on multiple teams in that Baltimore game. That's PTSD right there. But I think Woody Marks has the ability to be a PPR back. Again, he's a 4th-round pick here for you in your draft, so you're not expecting him to go out and be your RB1. And if he is, then please send us your team so we can tell you anything to do better than make Woody Marks your RB1. But, he'll have PPR value in my mind. You look back at his time at Mississippi State and even a little bit at USC, he was a workhorse in the pass game. And so I don't doubt that the Texans saw the ability to be, a receiving running back and to take some of that workload off of Joe Mixon to keep him healthy. And so they are able to throw Woody Marks in there and, have him get all those PPR points for you, right? That's how Alvin Kamara started out his career, and we've seen how that goes. I'm not saying Woody Marks is going to be Kamara, but in your PPR leagues, if he's getting, 50, 60 receptions, you're doing pretty good for yourself on a 4th-round running back.
No, absolutely. And I think the fourth round really shows you that if you're looking for a running back that you'd rather take a shot on, don't go in the rounds 2 to 3 range for a running back as much. I don't think you need it. So Jamie goes, is Woody Mox already on AARP 24? But like there's a lot of good value at running back later in the draft. Like could get in, fill in as the backup to Jonathan Taylor, and something happened to Jonathan Taylor. Absolutely. Woody Marks, receiving upside. We know Joe Mixon's injury history. Jaquiz Hunter, could this be the year Kerryon Williams can't handle a big workload anymore? People seem to be high on Jordan James. We don't know what's going on with Christian McCaffrey. We think he's going to be ready to go, but who knows? There's a lot of good depth piece at running back if you don't want to take reaches at your second and third round and prefer to go a different direction. Again, Pat Bryant's another guy I just like in round 4. I think there's just potential upside for him for the opportunity in Denver with the lack of wide receiver studs or starters, you could say there. And again, Tesla's again, I still don't see it. I don't see what the Lions were thinking. That's a personal opinion, but maybe I'll be proven wrong by the time we get to end of September. So, and then to the back half of round 4 here, we have Tez Johnson, who's been again rising up boards a lot. And I don't get that either. Brashard Smith. See, what did Jamie say? Can Woody Marks be what we hope Kenny Gainwell could have been? Maybe.
I definitely see it. Obviously, as long as the Texans don't bring in a Saquon type player, which I wouldn't be against, but I definitely think that he could be the Kenneth Gainwell to the Miles Sanders, what that Eagles offense was supposed to be.
That's fair. So yeah, going back to later round 4, again, Tez Johnson, Brashard Smith, Quinn Ewers, Dylan Gabriel, Gunnar Helm, and Savion Williams. Again, I haven't seen Savion Williams go in round 4 in any of my rookie drafts. I don't know where he comes from in this situation, to be honest. But someone obviously is taking him, and I'm not looking at it well enough. So, but in this round 4 range, this late round 4 range, does anyone stand out for you to go after? I think I might know the guy you're thinking of, but tell us, Coach Tyler.
If you're thinking of Brashard Smith, you're probably right, because he's been the guy that, everyone has talked about him, and he's still going in the 4th. It definitely makes sense with draft capital. But if you go back to our running back episode, we talked about Brashard Smith. This was a converted wide receiver, obviously 5'9", 194. So he was a slot guy in his time in college, but converted wide receiver who had, I want to say it was over 1,000 yards rushing this past season on top of his receiving work. So he has, a great receiving ability out of the backfield, but also, he went into Division I as a receiver. He's able to, motion out of the backfield and go line up in the slot and go beat a linebacker, go beat like a nickel corner on a route. He's shifty enough to do that. And you stick him in an offense with the best quarterback in football and arguably the best offensive mind in Andy Reid. And, obviously we could be propping those two things up and saying, oh my gosh, here's this gadget guy that's going to go to the Kansas City Chiefs. He's going to be everything in the world. But we look at what the Chiefs had last year in terms of receiver, right? They had Rashee Rice for 3-4 games, and then he was out. They had Xavier Worthy, who's got, some play to him, but he's not a consistent number 1 overall. They went and got Hollywood Brown, and he was dealing kind of with injuries in and out of the season, but he's, not a number 1. Juju Smith-Schuster is way past his number 1 days. They went and drafted Jalen Royal. They have Sky Moore. They have Justin Ross. But none of those guys seem to pop. And so in a game where you have the best quarterback in football, why would you not give him a weapon that is able to play out of the backfield, is able to, motion out, that you're able to bring in and line him up as a receiver and motion him through and run some kind of orbit motion. Let Andy Reid just give him the controls and trust what he's going to do.
Yeah.
And again, this is a guy you're drafting at the end of the 4th round. We're not expecting him to go out and be the RB1 this next season or possibly ever. But that doesn't mean that he can't be a good gadget guy to get in case something clicks in Kansas City, right?
Yeah.
They have a bunch of running backs there, but Isaiah Pacheco is really kind of one-dimensional. Carson Steele is there. He's a very good, I need to go get 2 yards type player. They went and got Elijah Mitchell, but he's been dealing with his own type of injuries. Kareem Hunt is old as dirt. And so it's not to say that Smith couldn't cut out a role as the third down back or the receiving back, much less a gadget guy that Andy Reid can line up anywhere on the field. I just saw that comment. That hurts.
Oh, man. It hurts me too. I get it.
I was wondering why we only saw offensive players when he said it was 90 league.
Yeah, no, that's very unfortunate. But
see if he'll reverse the trade real quick.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So, like I said, Smith is obviously the main guy here in the back half of round 4. I mean, again, no one else really. I mean, outside of getting Quinier, and put him on your Texas squad and see what happens to him in a few years, what Miami does over the next few seasons here. Again, former top talent prospect over just a year ago. You never know what could happen. But I do have one more slide for y'all because I didn't leave you guys out some other players. There's definitely a lot more players to kind of think about here, for sure here. And these are the guys first off the waivers, other round 4 picks. I didn't want to make a whole nother template for 10 more guys I have here, but Kyle Magani, Orlando Gadsden, Ty Felton, Damian Martinez, Trevor Etienne, Tajay Brooks, Ja'Cory Kazi Merritt. I'm so bad with names. Oh, my God. Jaheim Dykes, Isaiah Bond, Jordan Wilkins, Xavier Repto, and Troy Horton are the last guys here to talk about here. And again, if you hear my misspelling or mispronunciation of these names here, go on our YouTube channel and look at the names of yourself there. A lot of running backs, few tight ends, few wide receivers here. But yeah, if you're looking for a running back at this point, there's a lot there to offer you. But Coach Tyler, is there one or two that really stands out to you that people need to prioritize after waivers, or maybe in the late 4th round?
Yeah, late 4th round, I do like Gadsden. He's a guy that you've talked about liking. He walks into a Chargers tight end room that has Tyler Conklin and Will Dissly. Neither of them really jump off the page to me. He's a 21-year-old tight end, got 5th round draft capital, so they didn't wait till a Mr. Relevant type pick to go get him. Obviously, it's not necessarily super high integral draft capital, but there's a reason he's on our first off the waivers and other 4th rounders. But he could definitely work into a role there. Again, only Conklin and Dissly ahead of him. Neither player necessarily excites me. Y'all know I love Taj Brooks. Definitely going to play a role in my eyes in the Bengals backfield. Ricky Wright
from Las Vegas. Yes. I get it. I like the sneaky stash in deeper leagues.
Yeah, but Taj Brooks, he's a guy that I love. Obviously, wreck him, but we really don't think that Zach Moss is going to be back next year, or at least back 100% next year. Right, dealing with a neck injury. Those are always scary. Those can always pop up at any time. And so you want to be careful with those. But Brooks is a 5'10", 230-pound back that if Chase Brown needs a breather or if you need some short yardage, he can very easily get it for you. He could also bust one off. And so, obviously, I've been a very big Brooks fan. One guy that I really, see on here, I don't necessarily love the talent, but if y'all have watched since I've been on here, I love receivers that link up with their college quarterback. Cam Ward made sure the Titans went and got his receiver, and Xavier Restrepo, right after the draft as UDFA. They just have the chemistry already, so that, I think, plays some kind of role. But he's not anyone I'm necessarily blown away talent-wise. I just look at the situation. But those are really the guys that I look at here.
Lan Larson, possibly the next Danny Woodhead. Larson has never fumbled a ball in his life. I honestly don't even know what Lan Larson plays for.
I know the name Lan Larson. I don't necessarily.
Jamie, let us know what team he plays for, just so I have reference. I mean, I can look it up later, but
he's a Patriot.
Oh, he's a Oh, well, that makes sense then. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, there's the last round. What did he say here? Someone said Larson could be the next CMC. Because they're both white.
Yeah, that's
the only
requirement
too. But yeah, again, there's some talent here. I mean, I think just draft capital alone for Trevor Etienne going undrafted, like, we saw what happened to Bucky last year, 4th round pick, undrafted. And I saw him go late 4th, early, like basically undrafted in some places. I got him as a UDFA on one of my fantasy leagues. And Trevor Etienne, it's interesting. Like, definitely interesting for him. Like I said, Gladden I like a lot. A lot of people are high on the Merritt running back out of Washington. I'm not as high. I didn't really look at him too much pre-draft, but he is someone people are really excited about as well there. But I can't think of anyone else off the top of my head that might stand out worth drafting at this point. Kyle McClure, maybe if you want him. Riley Leonard, I think Coach, you mentioned him last week, talking about the Colts situation there. But that's really it. I know that the Raiders quarterback that they drafted, who I don't remember his name, is now going to be wide receiver. So they did not draft a quarterback in the draft last week. Now he is now a wide receiver. So. But that is going to wrap us up tonight, guys. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully it was very educational for you, at least in terms of finding out better value for ADP players right now. If you want my whole list of ADP spreadsheet, just reach out over on Twitter at Coach Stephen P or Coach's Fantasy, whatever you find us over on Twitter. But Coach Tyler, I'll let you wrap things up for us before I finish it up.
Yeah, one thing we always talk about, go check out dynastynerds.com. That's where, we get a lot of our info. That's where we did a lot of our film study. They have great things like the Dynasty GM over there. Obviously, great articles. Coach Steve puts in a lot of work over there churning out articles. But go check out dynastynerds.com. We represent them. We love them. That's how me and Coach Steve got linked up and got started doing this together. But once you get over there, use code COACH. Let them know that we sent you. And thank you guys so much for checking us out tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jamie, thank you for saying great show. We appreciate that as always. Just jumping in, and everyone else who jumped in at some point tonight's show, we appreciate you guys as well. Like I said, we do this for free. We don't get paid to do this. But we enjoy giving you guys some amazing fantasy advice for the off season. And it all starts right now winning your dynasty drafts and finding value to help you win 2025. So this is going to be our last show for a little bit. We're taking about a month and a half off, guys. I know, very sad. I get it. I have just some real life career stuff I have to do, unfortunately, and be a hermit for the next month and a half here, which requires me not to focus on fantasy football. But we will be returning back late June. So mark it in your calendar. We'll be back on a Monday, late June. I think it's the last Monday of June here. Mm-hmm. And we'll start getting into the 2025 season and giving you guys as much content as possible. We're going to have guests on the show through the final 2 months of the summer here. And that's about it. So we'll see you guys in the summertime. If you have any questions, as always, though, please reach out to us via Twitter or X, whatever you call it, at Coach's Fantasy or at Coach Stephen P. Or Tyler, your X handle. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, FF_TJ Hernandez.
So, reach out to us if you have any fantasy questions. We're more than happy. I can still answer fantasy questions. It's just I don't have the time and effort to prep for the shows right now and research content to give you guys good, accurate advice for my own self. And if I do that, I know I'm not going to pass what I have to pass coming up. So we'll be back end of June. Until then, guys, thank you all for listening. Tune in until then, guys, and have a great one.
Back to back is not far-fetched.